It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us is Dr. Edward Sri, here to talk about a new program out from Ascension Press, No Greater Love, a biblical walk through Christ's Passion. Thanks for being here, Dr. Sri.
Thanks so much for having me.
When we're talking about walking through Christ's Passion, I always think of the Holy Land. How many times have you been to the Holy Land?
Oh, wow. I've been a number of times. I go each year, so I don't know exactly how many, but I lead pilgrimages usually in the fall sometime. And it's such a moving thing, right? If you've ever been, to just see the places where Jesus walked. And that's one of the things I try to do in this new program, is to bring people in contact with Jesus, because we've all heard these stories of Jesus agonizing in a garden, carrying a cross, being scourged at a pillar, and all these things. But then to go to the places where these events happened, it's so moving. I've seen many pilgrims, grown men, begin to weep. They're just so moved. This is where he agonized in the garden for me.
Yeah.
So that's part of what we're trying to do, is give people an encounter with Christ, whether it's through the book or through the videos, and seeing the places where Jesus began his passion.
What has been the most moving experience for you, or maybe one of the first moving experiences of the Holy Land?
You know, for me, I would say when I first went to the Holy Land when I was a graduate, a doctoral student in the 1990s. And my first time, it was Calvary, of course. You know, if you've never been there, it's just amazing to go, this is where he died. I was just being so moved, and thousands of people in this long line to go to remember that place. But that place is inside a massive church right now, so it doesn't look anything like Calvary did originally. Right. So I would say over time now, like in Jerusalem, one of my favorite places is more the temple area, where you can go to the southern steps of the temple, and you're touching the actual steps that Jesus would have walked up. It's pretty amazing. Or where we filmed for this project on Christ's Passion, we filmed in Gethsemane, and there's these olive trees that are about 1,000 years old, and their root systems, though, go all the way back probably to the time of Jesus. And so what's fascinating is, when you go there, you touch the olive tree, you're coming in contact with something from the time of Jesus. And it all becomes so real, that this is the mountain of olives, the mountain where Jesus came the night before he died. This is where he sweat like drops of blood. This is where he prayed in his agony, and he did this all for me. It's real. It happened right here.
You mentioned the videos. Can you explain the format of No Greater Love?
Yeah, so there's a book that I wrote on the topic, and that book stands on its own. People can read it. It comes with little reflection questions that you could use, whether you read it for a devotion during Lent, for each day in your prayer. You can take it to the chapel. So it's just a book that stands on its own. But we did do a video study, a video program that could be used for Bible study, for men's groups, women's groups, small faith communities, things like that. And it's a 5-week program that's meant to fit in perfectly for Lent. That's the idea. So you can go through this for your journey with the Lord during Lent. And we filmed in Jerusalem, right at the very sites where Christ's Passion took place. So like I said, we went to the Garden of Gethsemane. We filmed right at the rock where Jesus prayed. We got to walk the streets of Jerusalem and remember Jesus' carrying of the cross. We went to Caiaphas' house. We went to Calvary, of course. And so it's a visual pilgrimage in that you get to see all these places, but it's a biblical pilgrimage in the sense that what I'm trying to do is unpack for the reader in the book and the viewer of the video program every little word of the Passion narrative. So what does it mean? What does it tell us about what Jesus was thinking? What was he going through? What was he doing for me? And it's so fascinating. I mean, I've been teaching this for 20 years, but as I was intensively doing all the prep work for the video program and the book, the research I was doing, I learned so much, I got to tell you, really. There were so many little parts of the Passion narrative that I just hadn't spent much time with. And I said, wow, that is really cool. And then there's so many things that happen. We hear these stories every Good Friday, every Palm Sunday. But do you ever wonder, when Jesus says, for example, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass. Do you ever wonder, is Jesus at the last minute thinking of backing out? Is he having second thoughts? What's that all about?
Cold feet Jesus.
Is that what's happening, right? Or when Jesus says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Was he really abandoned by the Father? These are just some fascinating things. And I think what we find is, if you go a little deeper, when he says, can you pass this cup? He's expressing how he's truly human. If Jesus is truly human, he took on our humanity, then the kind of suffering and crucifixion he's about to face, that's not something any ordinary human being would look forward to, So he's expressing his repugnance toward suffering and death, which is that's just what it means to be human. But the fact that Jesus is fully divine as well is expressed in the next line. And he says, "But Father, not my will, may your will be done." In other words, Jesus' human will is perfectly united to the Father's will. He looks death square in the eye. He acknowledges this is going to be really hard. That's why he says, "Is it possible for this cup to pass?" But in the same breath, he says, "Not my will, may your will be done." Just a lot of great practical application for our lives. The great St. Thomas Aquinas, he says it's kind of like taking bad-tasting medicine. Like, when you take bad-tasting medicine, you don't take it because, I just want to kick back and enjoy this while I'm watching the Super Bowl. You take it because it's helpful for you. And Jesus is expressing, this crucifixion is like bad-tasting medicine. It's not like I'm taking it just for the sake of the suffering, but I'm going to take it because I want to bring healing. I want to bring healing to the world, salvation. And it's a reminder for us that we are many times called to do difficult things, but we kick and scream like a baby and we spit out the medicine. We just resist it. Let's be more like Jesus. Let's embrace the little crosses, the challenges that Christ brings before us, and give ourselves perfectly the Father's will like he did in Gethsemane.
We're talking with Dr. Edward Sri. The resource he's talking about is No Greater Love, a biblical walk through Christ's passion. And I think, like you mentioned, we hear these readings of Christ's passion, especially during Lent. And I think a lot of times, especially if we've heard it ever since we were a little kid, it just becomes a story that we hear over and over, and we don't even think about some of the details, much less some of the things that we might naturally question. We've just said, of course, there's an explanation for it. I don't know exactly what it is, but no, Jesus didn't doubt or Jesus didn't question God's will or whatever. And we don't look into it, but by breaking it down and understanding why he was saying what he's saying is going to help us to get so much more out of the story. So I think this is great. What made you want to take the book that you put together and then add on the video series with it?
Yeah, I've written many books. I love writing, but I also know that people have a profound experience also when they're able to study together in a group. So that's why the idea of whether you do a book study or a video study is great, but also the videos, the visuals, being able to see these very places. And so in this little biblical pilgrimage we take in the video series, I'm standing at all these places. So for example, I go right where outside of Caiaphas's house, and I'm in, you can imagine Peter being somewhere outside when he denies Jesus, and to be able to just teach about that event right there where it happened. It's just so moving for people. And then they get a little picture in their head of what it might have looked like. And that's what I really wanted to do, is to bring people into that encounter. And I want to draw them into the Word of God as we're doing it. And so they often say the Holy Land is the fifth gospel. Yeah. That once you kind of go there and you see it, you'll never hear the Sunday readings or the Mass readings or the Gospel readings the same, because you'll have a picture of the Sea of Galilee in your mind. You have a picture of the temple steps in your mind. You'll have a picture of Jerusalem in your mind. And so this is a way for there are many people that can't get to Jerusalem necessarily, but they can kind of experience it from afar through this video program.
And it's not just you. You've got a greatest hits of Catholic presenters in the video series. Can you talk about who else is involved with this?
Yeah, we got a great team of people like Father Mike Schmitz, who's a great friend and does just so much great work. Mm-hmm. He's involved with this. We've got Jennifer Fulweiler, Teresa Tomio, Father Josh Johnson, Jeff Cavins is involved. And we actually, they did a little segment with my wife. They heard my wife on a podcast and said, she'd be great, get her on. So she did a little piece as well. But what we wanted to do is not make it just me the whole time. I love bringing in other people just to kind of round it out, because they'll bring a different angle, a different perspective on these scenes. And so we bring them in periodically throughout the program to kind of just offer a lot of some application to our lives. So I'm typically unpacking the biblical background and walking through step by step what's happening, what does this mean? And then they're there really kind of taking some of those scenes and sharing from their own testimony how this story impacted them. I love this one, Father Johnson. I asked him, I didn't even know about this event in his life. I just said, hey, could you do something on when Jesus is at Calvary and he says, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Can you do something on forgiveness? And he says, oh, wow. And I hear his story. And his story is this, that he was on pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and he's going to Calvary, and he's waiting in that line. And then while he's waiting in line, he sees someone ahead of him that he's not seen in over a decade. It was a friend from his growing up in high school.
No.
It was someone who deeply hurt him, deeply wounded him. And it just brought back all of these emotions and fears and anger and hurt. And it was just so frustrated, flustered. But then he remembered Jesus's words, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And he just begged God, help me to pray that prayer in my own heart. Help me to forgive this man. It was just like, and it happened right there at Calvary. So that's the kind of great little, kind of personal perspectives that others will bring on. Teresa Tomeo is another one. She shares, I asked her to talk about Judas. Judas betrayed Jesus, and we could think, well, thank goodness I'm not a Judas. I may not be the best Catholic in the world, but I'm not a Judas. But we have to reflect on Judas's life and what are the small ways we might betray Jesus. We may not hand him over to the chief priest, but there's different ways we fail to stand up for him and for his moral truth. There's ways that we maybe have compromised our faith life. And she tells a personal story of how she had left the church for a while and why she left the church, and then realizing that she was kind of like a Judas in those moments, and how she eventually came back. So I think those are, so they'll get a lot of, throughout the book and the video series, people are going to get so much of the biblical background. They're going to learn about the Old Testament prophecies. They're going to learn about what all these words mean. They're going to learn about what Jesus was going through. And I think that'll be great. But I love bringing in these others who can then also do some application for our lives.
Well, and luckily we're kind of ahead of the curve here a little bit, giving people time to plan for Lent. So what would you suggest as the best way for you to go through this? Is it with a group? Is it on your own? What should people be trying to get together before Lent?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, the program's flexible. It's there for everybody. There are some people that just say, I don't want to do a small group. I don't have time to do a small group. Then, hey, great. You can watch the videos on your own. You can watch them online. You can get the DVD set. Or you may say, I just want to read a book. I think one good thing I would just say for everyone listening, for Lent, you want to have something that's going to accompany you throughout your Lenten journey. It doesn't have to be the book I'm talking about today. You could read, there's the one I'm reading now by Mother Mary Frances, Getting Ready for Lent, A Time for Renewal. Awesome book. It could be, so many other great things. But having something like that's going to feed your mind, and you have something you're committed to read every day. My book might be, an option because it's a walking through Christ's passion, and you could look at that. So it could just stand on its own. Sure. But I would say it's best when you can go in a group study and you're together with others. You learn so much more when you're hearing them talk about it and then you articulate it. That's the ideal, I think. So if you have friends or you just want to do it as a family, it comes with leaders' guides, participant guides to make it really easy. If you've never led a study before, it's like just add water and stir, super easy. Anyone can do it. I really encourage, if you can, I think the study is the best.
And where should we send people to get a copy of that?
Yeah, just go to ascensionpress.com. You can check it out there. You can also, it's right there featured on my website, which is my name, Edward SRI.com as well. So edward3.com or ascensionpress.com, both places will direct you to be able to order it, and it'll be out in time for your Lenten journey. Good, yeah. It's called No Greater Love, A Biblical Walk Through Christ's Passion. Thank you so much, Dr. Edward Sri, for joining us and inspiring us and sharing this with us. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, and God bless.